Good evening, everyone. Wow, everybody quieted down very quickly. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Tantramar regular council meeting of Tuesday, October 14th, 2025 to order. I'd like to acknowledge we are located within the territory of Mi'kma'ki, the unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Just before we get into the approval of the agenda, I would like to again just mention our procedure and organization of council bylaw, bylaw 2022-03, under section 16 of rules of public decorum. We have a presentation today of a contentious issue. Pro Energy is going to be here presenting for 5 minutes. I'll hold them to 5 minutes. After that, council will have an opportunity to ask questions of the presenter. So we realize that this is a very contentious issue. We realize that there's lots of concerns from the public, rightly so. But Pro Energy, just like anyone else, has an opportunity to approach the mic and give their presentation in a respectful fashion. So please keep comments from the gallery at a minimum. Also, no, and Phyllis, you're fine. No signs, placards, or banners. It doesn't say anything about flags, so Phyllis, you're okay. Okay, so that being said, move on to approval of the agenda 1.1. There's a motion for that. If a councillor could read that. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
I move that council approve the agenda of the regular council meeting of October the 14th, 2025 as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Finney. Any comments or questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 1.2, conflict of interest declaration. Any conflict of interest from staff or council for the items in the agenda as presented? Seeing none. Okay. Moving on to number 2, public and administrative presentations. 2.1, Pro Energy Canada. I believe John McIsaac is making the presentation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. So again, 5 minutes. We will have a hard stop on that. We'll have a timer on it. At that point, council will be able to ask you questions. So approach the mic, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors. Thanks for the opportunity. First slide, please. Well, Aleok, merci, and thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to join you this evening. We acknowledge that we gather on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and we honor the original stewards of the land. Next slide, please. So I think it's important to take a minute before we jump into the slide deck and just very brief a message. I'd be remiss not to spend a minute and talk about the fact that this is very important work for all New Brunswickers, and it's critically important that we get it right. We need to be committed to getting it right, and when we do get it right, we provide energy security. We ensure that we make rates affordable. We get ourselves to a place where we're successfully greening the grid, and we do it in a fashion that we have permission to continue. So what it is 85% of the operating hours are based on grid support, where the facility operates in synchronous condensed mode when it uses no water, consumes no fuel. And it's all about supporting increased penetration of renewables onto the grid. The other 6 to 7% of the year, we're in a place where we're backing up the grid in the absence of renewables. It has the ability to operate on short notice because these are quick response machines. Provides a step change reduction in emissions in the province in year 1. Of 250,000 tons of CO2 and ensures energy security. The remainder of the time, we're flexible and we can be dispatched in either mode. Next slide, please. So what does it do for New Brunswickers? It's a significant boost to overall system reliability. Critically needed grid support. And if I don't say that 7 times tonight, I haven't said it enough. This is all about the critical importance of grid support and getting additional grid support onto the system as we increase the penetration of renewables. It enables increased penetration of renewables. Stabilizes costs by getting the lowest cost energy inputs onto the grid. And there's studies, and Pam, we should get some of those studies onto our webpage that support that we're in a place, gas and renewables are the 2 most cost-effective inputs to the grid. And what this does is provides the reliability to get more of the renewables onto the grid and more gas as required in that 6 to 7% of the year. The step change reduction in CO2 emissions comes from the fact that you're not starting up a large plant to address a small issue on the grid. These are all in 50 megawatt blocks and can be selectively started by the each. So it allows the flexibility if NB Power is short, but only short by a small amount, they can dispatch us on short notice. And it prioritizes New Brunswick content. Opposed to what you may have heard, we have spent considerable time with New Brunswick skilled trades in ensuring that the benefits happen here first. So we've taken New Brunswick skilled trades entities to both Sedalia, Missouri, and to see some of our plants in Houston, Texas as well. It's a proven solution, which means there's minimal risk. We've produced this plant again and again and again. It's a fully integrated solution with a lot of learning and a lot of expertise has gone into providing a fully integrated solution that is a solve for, it's almost a perfect fit for, backing up all of the renewables and being immediately dispatchable in short time frame for when it's required, when there's an upset on the grid, for example, or where there's a shortage. And we're out of time.
The 5 minutes goes fast.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here as well. So I have some questions myself, but I'll open it up to council for questions or comments. Councillor Gogan.
Thank you, Mayor Black. Let me just go back to my sheet here. I'm a little concerned at this power plant being put where it's at. Obviously, there is a need for it in New Brunswick, but this almost seems like NB Power, and unfortunately, you're the wrong person to be here tonight because we should be asking NB Power questions, not you. And I understand that you're coming from the business side, and I totally understand that, but there's just so many things that are unknown in this project, and I think that's why the gallery's full right now, because there are so many unknowns with the project that unfortunately it hasn't been communicated properly. We only got the notice on Facebook of all places before it even came out to council to say that there was something coming in the area. For all this time, it was set up to be in Skiduk, and all of a sudden, it's not in Skiduk anymore. So I've got a couple of questions. I'll just ask you the questions, and then you can answer them when I'm done. So it's the first one is, what's the projected cost to operate the gas plant, and how will those costs be passed on to taxpayers or ratepayers? Might not be able to answer that. Gas prices are volatile because we all know natural gas increases with demand. How is that going to be passed on to ratepayers, and how are they going to be able to ensure stable, affordable energy for local residents? So the other one that I've heard, and I don't know if it's true, and I hope to God it isn't, is Nova Scotia Power and PEI Power have signed on agreements for the plant, that they will receive power that gets generated from it, thus increasing the 7% to more. And for it to be spent this much money for only 5 or 6 to 7% usage over the year, there seems to be a huge cost that has been downloaded on the taxpayers. Has NB Power looked at other alternatives? Because there are plenty of other alternatives, as St. John Energy has proven time and time again that they are able to put in renewable energy, put in battery storage in the grid, and they're not trying to build a 500 megawatt power plant in the middle of St. John. So, like, I don't know, it's just gonna.
Just before you begin, Mr. McIsaac.
Sure.
Really quickly, again, in the bylaw, it says no clapping, no comments, no cheering. I get it, you want to clap. You can maybe, I don't know if you've ever seen clapping that, yeah, you can clap like this. That's great. You can clap like this. We can see it. We know that you're here. So please, if you can, please not do that. That would be great. Really quickly, just about St. John Power, they have their own power company,
Yes.
which is wonderful. That would just be an amazing thing. Same thing with Summerside. Just to kind of frame that for everybody in the room, that St. John has their own energy and are able to kind of, walk that line and figure out how they want to do it. But point taken, I just wanted to kind of frame that. So, Mr. McIsaac, I think there were a couple of questions there.
It felt like there was maybe 4 or 5. And you're right. So I won't speak on behalf of NB Power. And what I'm comfortable in speaking to is stuff that is not within an NDA. So for the items that I don't respond to, it's more than likely because I can't. So I'm happy to respond to stuff that's not protected by an NDA. And I'm more than happy to come back as many times as is required. One of the things that you had talked about was communication and how you found out, and the need for more information and the unknowns. We'll keep coming back. As many times as you'll have us come back, we'll keep coming back and inform the dialogue or extend the conversation, however you want to say it. So to address the question around siting and location, and NB Power, because I had anticipated, I had asked them to put together an executive summary on the siting process. They now have that ready, and it's going through peer review internal to NB Power. So I'd encourage you to go and ask them for it, because I know it's ready, or it's in the review stage, because I know how important it is to the community to have the benefit of that information. I would not do justice to it, but what I can say is they started at a very high level. They reviewed 8 different locations throughout the province. They narrowed it down to 2. They did fully developed site constraints modeling between the 2 sites. And at the end of the day, the impacts to the site were less, materially less, in Center Village than they were in Skidooc. And in addition to that, it was around schedule as well. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We will ask for the siting protocol
Yeah,
summary,
I
not the
think it
executives,
would
but
be
the full
helpful
report.
and ask for that to be shared.
Yes, thank you. Yep, follow up, Councillor Gauguin.
I mean, it just boggles my mind how an industrial park can be less of a ideal spot versus a middle of a wildlife protected area. But the other part, and I know you said about MDAs, NDAs and all that, and God love the lawyers because they'll come after you, but is it true that this power can be sold to Nova Scotia and PEI?
This specific facility, when it was laid out inside of the permitting process, was for 500 megawatts. That's what we're permitted for. That's what we've been working towards. The initial agreement with NB Power is for 400 megawatts. The difference between the two is for them to speak to. I'm in a place where I know what Prince Edward Island are doing, and if you read what's been publicly posted, they are interested in pursuing their own solution. They're pursuing their own solution. And for Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, that's a question for NB Power. Okay?
I think Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell, you were next.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Black. Thank you, Mr. McIsaac. I have a couple of concerns, and one of them is with the size of this building, what you're constructing, and be locked in for 25 years, and with technology moving so fast. I mean, I can remember years ago when we used to talk into a bag phone, and now we're talking into our watches. So why such a big operation in this period of time, and to be locked in for this 25 years, that maybe down the road things could be smaller and less intrusive on the environment? That's the question I have.
I think the important thing is, and I'll be honest in saying, I'm going to say it 7 times or maybe more, but this is predominantly a synchronous condensing facility to enable renewables. It's about enabling renewables. It's part of the strategy, the long-term strategy for enabling renewables. So the opportunity in explaining it, and it's complicated. It's not a simple piece of technical explanation, but in absence of system inertia or rotating inertia, you can get to a place where voltage becomes unstable and the system starts to come apart. And as you increase the penetration of renewables, that situation becomes more acute. So you only have to look at occurrences in other jurisdictions around the world, including Spain and Portugal this past summer, where they got into a situation where the voltage became unstable and the system starts to come apart. You reach a place where, in absence of that critical system inertia, you have to stop your renewables strategy. It's all about the pursuit and a stepped approach of reliably enabling renewables. What happens in the absence of those critical features, that system inertia feature, is you have to curtail the renewables to keep the grid stable. And it only takes a small percentage of difference in voltage, like a 1.8 to 2% difference on voltage, and the system starts to come apart. And other jurisdictions have made significant progress on renewables, only to have to backtrack to get their system inertia back in balance. And inside of the pursuit of renewables, NB Power would tell you that all of their plans for growth in terms of generation are predominantly focused on renewables. This enables that strategy. Yeah.
Councillor Butcher?
Thank you. I guess I don't really have a question. I have a couple of comments.
Sure.
First of all, thanks for coming, although I really wish this had happened months ago, because the lack of communication that was from the get-go has perhaps partially caused the issues that we're now having. And I think we have 2 issues. When I'm trying to make sense of it in my head, it feels like there is you're trying to help us understand why we need a fossil fuel plant that is going to aid with green energy. And that is a conversation that we could be having over and over and over again, and I'm not sure I would ever understand it. It may actually be true, but I can't wrap my brain around it. Yeah. It does not make sense to me. But the other thing, and the more important thing, is that even if someone could convince our community that this is something that is needed for New Brunswick Power, for the New Brunswick citizens, I cannot see why it should be placed in an ecologically sensitive area on the isthmus. So there's two parts to that. The other thing is, we spoke at the Music Barn, and I said that one thing that I thought was going to be a problem moving forward was that council, the community, everyone felt blindsided by this, that we weren't told in time. And so you had the additional job of trying to alleviate fears and concerns that have built from a lack of communication. But more has happened since then, in that things that we were told in the good news story of this is not true. There are no Indigenous groups that are backing this right now. We were told there was. So now you come and you tell us these things, and thank you again for being here. It's not an easy job for you, but I feel like I've already been told things that weren't completely true. So when I hear these great news things and about how it will work, I can't in good faith believe it, because I've been told things before that weren't true from you. So thanks for being here, but this is not going to fix it for me.
Thank you for your feedback. Can I speak to it just for 1 second? So I recognize that we're coming from a long way back, so we've got ground to cover. And we're committed to doing the work to build that relationship, restore the relationship, and restore the trust. From an Indigenous participation perspective, what I said, and I stand by what I said was from the outset, when we started proactively very early with Indigenous conversation back in 2024. And I would invite you to fact check me. Inside of our submission to MB Power in response to the RFP, and I know that nobody else has fact checked either, because I checked today. I'd invite you to fact check me by going back and submitting a request for an access to information for the supporting documents that accompanied our response to the RFP. And then I'm more than happy to come back and have the conversation over again.
Yep, Councilor Butcher.
So I do know that the Indigenous community that is a part of our community that is here didn't know anything about it either. So you may have connected with Indigenous groups, but not ours, not where we're putting this plant. So, yeah.
I'd invite you to fact check me.
I didn't see who was first. Councilor Finney, do you want to? Yeah.
John, the last thing we said to each other at the meeting up at the rink.
More volume, please.
Lean.
More
Hey,
volume.
just a minute, I'll speak up. John, the last thing that you and I said to each other, you asked me, just keep an open mind.
Correct.
I'm trying to do that. But at the beginning, as a matter of fact, we found out about this through Facebook. Number one, why didn't you tell us months ago before? Secondly, we were told that the Indigenous were supposedly, and they're on board with it and everything else. A lie, we found that out. I could go on with many other things, but the thing is the way I'm looking at it right now, why should I believe anything you tell me? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. I'm sorry you feel that way. And in all honesty, again, not to repeat myself, but I'm going to repeat myself. I'd invite you to go and make the request through an access to information and look at the supporting documents that were there that accompanied our response to MB Power. And then I'm more than happy to come back and have the conversation over again. Because I do believe it will inform that point, and it will help us all get to a shared reference point on what was the pre-work that was done and what wasn't done.
Councilor Tower?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for being here. Long overdue. The horses are out in the field and the barn's closed.
Yeah,
So it's
I come
kinda
from a
useless.
horsey family, so
Yeah, so you know about it.
I do.
I do know a bit about your conversation with the Indigenous North Shore Group.
Yep.
And I do know of a vague statement made to our local Indigenous people, and it was just a vague statement made to that person. But your signs at your show said you were in partnership. And vague conversation doesn't mean you're in partnership. So what you were trying to say, I can understand what you're saying, but your signs do not agree with what you're saying, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And when I read some of your information about, talking about the area in Center Village, and you talk about the Indigenous group, and well, they're 23 kilometers away, so they're really not a concern for this. Basically, I take my own terminology, how you said it, but it basically says that they're over there and you're dealing with this area here. But the Indigenous people did not give up the right to the land, and they have a right to continue their stewardship. So therefore, I think before this even came forward to us, you should have actually sat down with them and got them on board so that they totally understood what you were trying to do. And I would, personally, I'd be very surprised if they agreed. When you talk about, from research I've done, the feedback I've got from some experts, that when you talk about the grid and renewables, you're talking technology that is 5 to 7 years old, the information coming back. Scotland, Germany, Finland, Norway are all going with the latest technology, which is improving. In fact, Scotland went 100% because they feel they can do it, and so far it's been proven right for them. So again, that would be debatable whether your information is accurate, and even if mine is. But I mean, I did check with some of the electrical companies within those foreign countries. That's the information I got back. When I read about mitigation for the wildlife, you're cutting trees down when the birds aren't here, and you say if you find any active nests, then you'll do something to mitigate it. But if they're all leaving and there's no trees to come back to, that won't be an issue. So I find it kind of disheartening. I don't consider that being I don't find it personally being a good stewardship of the land. New Brunswick's heading into, they're now trying to want public opinion about updating our water and air quality and what we can do to improve that. And for me, I don't see where 10 jet engines would improve the air quality personally. And when it comes to those jet engines, of course, when I was talking to a couple of people at your show on the second day, and they said that you guys were going to be totally transparent with the information that you're being asked. Now, I know you have your non-disclosures, and that's what lawyers are for, as has been stated. But I talked to one lady, and I wish I had her name, I can't remember, but she wasn't with your group, she was with the IAAC. And I talked about the water that you're drawing in, and you're taking all the, what you call impurities out of the water, and then dumping them back out again. So I said, what about situations where manganese, which is not good for the body in any way, shape, or form, and now you're dumping all that back in, it's going to increase the quantity level. Her comment was, that's above my pay grade, and I think only Pro Energy can tell you that. So I said, is there anybody here? And she says, no, I don't think there is right now that could deal with that. Now, we had a professor at University of Moncton challenged some of your statistics. the data that you put on what you're putting into our air. And he sent that off to Quebec to make sure his figures were right. Now, both people that were looking into it are experts in that field. Now, back to your second day, and they said, any information that is not covered by non-disclosure would be answered. Now, this professor sent information off, and his reply from the company was, we have no comment at this time. Now, the information was given to IAAC, and they didn't have enough data in there, what they looked at, to give an answer to it. So they didn't reply to that part. But your company definitely has the information. And to get back, no comment at this time, does not, to me, show transparency. You know, I'm already feeling defensive. I don't want to trust you because you didn't come to us first. You did, or actually, you didn't go to First Nations first, and locally, and you didn't come to us. And then to feel that it's on social media, what's this all about? You know, so nothing there leads to trust. And I'd like to be able to trust people we deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I find when all these things are happening, that it's a little disheartening to me. And you have a lot of stairs to climb to get to where I want to have faith in you.
I'm committed to that work.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of curious if your company has ever apologized for putting on those boards that you were in partnership with First Nation when you weren't really in partnership yet. Have you publicly apologized for that statement on your board yet?
Just really quickly, just before you begin.
Okay.
I just want to point out and just remind, I know we've already had some comments, I'm sure there will be more. Again, going back to our procedure and organization council bylaw, section 9.3, a presentation is given to council and councilors may ask questions. A lot of the comments are comments, which is great, but if you could frame it as a question, that would be great, because then we fit within our guidelines. Also, I think it's pretty clear, like your second point of other countries going 100% or close to for green energy projects. Pro Energy is a proponent who's been asked to build a project. So these kinds of questions need to be directed to MB Power, and I really feel that we need to have MB Power come here and present to us. I think that a lot of these questions need to be asked directly to that company. If they had done, and I think I've said this to you before, Mr. McIsaac, but I think if MB Power had actually invested in renewable energy like people had been telling them 20 to 25 years ago, we wouldn't be even having this conversation right now. So I think if MB Power was able to come here and meet with us, that we could ask some of these questions that you, as the proponent of a project that you're building that is sort of being dictated by MB Power, I think that would be highly useful. But anyway, I apologize, Councillor Tower. There's a question on the floor from Councillor Tower.
I'm not sure what the question was. I heard a lot of comments and feedback.
The one I just gave you is, have you ever publicly apologized for your boards stating that you were in partnership with the First Nations, the North Shore, and we had the chair of the North Shore who said you were not in partnership. You had sat down and went over some information, but there was no partnership. Mm-hmm. But you haven't, that I know of, publicly apologized for your board stating one thing and reality wasn't really backing it up.
Okay. So two things. Again, at the risk of repeating myself, and I apologize for that. Let's anchor the conversation in facts. So let's backtrack and go and get some facts around the conversation so it's not this back and forth. And I'm more than happy to come back, and if an apology is in order, I'll do that too. Okay? We have 2 NDAs in place, and I'm limited in what I can say. I don't want to have it become non-productive, but I think if we could have a factual conversation on the work that was done and the work that wasn't done, if you still feel that an apology is in order, I'll provide an apology. Okay?
Councillor Tower, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, and yeah, your non-disclosure probably covers a lot of it up, and we can't get that information. I understand that, Pat.
Yeah.
I just know what I've spoken to, and that's what I have to go by. And when, at your second meeting, when it was talked to the group, the crowd that was there, it was
Yes.
stated that we didn't say that, but your board in the other room said that.
Our public messaging was based on our understanding at the time, sir.
So, and that's where an apology,
Yep,
that's where an apology could have come in
Yep.
very handy at that point. So thank you for that a little bit, I appreciate it.
yep.
Back to, can you give any reason why, when asked about the discrepancy in the data that was in your report presented, wasn't responded to by, wish I could find it right off the bat, but it was sent to your company in Texas, Chris Evans.
Okay,
And he supposedly had all the information, and his only answer back, instead of replying to the data, to the professors, his only answer was, no comment at this time.
okay.
You know, so that, I'll let you answer that first, if you can.
So, two-part response. So, again, what Chris Evans is doing inside of not responding is trying not to disrupt the environmental assessment review process and the consultation process. So us commenting could be seen as us influencing or attempting to influence what is supposed to be an independent process. I'm more than happy to take the request. I'll take your request and I'll take it back through Chris, and we'll get a response that addresses the questions and the subject matter experts on the emissions. And I can also share, I also know that MB Power is working on a detailed response in that space as well.
Okay, but you can understand where the mistrust can come in when you don't answer something that you put data forward on?
I can understand the frustration, for sure.
Okay, especially where if it is inaccurate information and the emissions level is higher, then that would also affect the review that's being done. Would it not?
I'm quite confident, Councillor Tower, I'm quite confident that the emissions data that was submitted inside of the submission to IAC and the Department of Environment would be consistent with our own actual results and not anything that would misrepresent what the facility is able to provide.
Councillor Tower?
Thank you.
Just hold on, just make sure your mic is on. It might have got turned off there.
He anticipated. I should have known. Okay, for water consumption,
Yes.
you know, which, as you can appreciate, is a major concern up there. And down here in the long run, if things go wrong. Do you, first, is the figure accurate on 7 million liters a day when you're operating it? Can you give me an accurate figure on that?
So it depends on the time of the year and what mode of operation we're in, what type of fuel we're using. So there's a number of different combinations and permutations. And the information that's inside of our submittal to IAC and the Department of Environment shows a range of possible scenarios. And it's different by season. And the reason it's different by season is during the summer months, You use in the event that you're in generate mode, if we're called upon to run in generate mode. In the summer months, you use water for temperature, and it augments the amount of power and efficiency that the unit is able to produce. So it's the atomization of the water at the intake, which actually improves the efficiency in terms of overall output. And in the winter time, it obviously would use less water because of the incoming temperature being lower. Inside of stack scrubbing, the emissions reduction inside of stack scrubbing is basically the same. But the difference in water consumption is the difference in seasonality and the outside ambient temperature.
Thank you for that. Can you give me an approximate range?
Yeah.
Since those figures were talked about?
Sure. In the winter time, 60 gallons per minute, and in the summertime, 90 gallons per minute per unit. And those are good numbers to work with.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Now, the other one might be a little hard for you to calculate.
That's on a, I'm sorry, just for added clarity, that's on a per unit basis. 60 to 90 gallons per minute.
Unit.
Per unit.
And you got 10 of them, right, okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
I appreciate it. My other one, which I've been very curious about because of my conversation at your second show, was the impurities are taken out of that beautiful water in Center Village. And that's why I get a little chuckle out of the impurities coming out. But if you judge by other places where you've done this same thing, what percentage of the water is taken away of all those minerals? Like, I'm trying to figure out what possibly could be dumped back down into the ground or through the water sources.
So, just so that we're all on the same page, we haven't done the drilling at site. We don't have the groundwater, the source groundwater results. We don't know the constituents that are in the water. We can make only assumptions, right? So when we're in a place where we're making assumptions, it gets to that place where it causes misinformation. So stepping back for just a minute, on a high level, the water that comes out of the ground is probably the best place to start. And if you look at a high level percentage as a separation between what actually goes in after the reverse osmosis plant into the demineralized water storage facility, that's probably 70% of the water. The other 30% of the water is water that's rejected from the reverse osmosis plant. Because I think what you were looking for was a high-level indication of the split between the two. Does that answer your question?
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Estibrooks?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Black. Thank you for coming, John. It's important that our council has the opportunity to ask questions on this project, for sure. So the environmental concerns, I'm not going to go into that. I do have a question for you, and it's around water. And Councillor Tower touched on some of it. Obviously, we have concerns with wells, residential wells in the area, for
Yes.
sure. That's a huge concern. And my question is around, and you probably can't give the exact numbers right now, so it is a good thing that we will have you come back, because I think the testing and the wells on site will give you the ability to answer the question.
Correct.
The water's extracted from the ground at the rates and volumes that you just indicated, or close to those. And then it's put through a reverse osmosis process to clean the water. The reject water is high in minerals, and it's returned to the ground. Am I correct with that?
So, again, I'm not let me start by saying the groundwater is critically important to everybody. And we recognize how important it is for the community. And it's not taken lightly. There's a really rigorous process in place by both the federal government of Canada and the province of New Brunswick on groundwater usage. So we will have to follow all of the guidance and thresholds for water consumption. There are no exceptions, right? So we start with that as the bar is high, and they're going to ensure that we don't do anything with regard to sustainability of the water source. It's really important. So once you move to a place where you say, how much water is going to be used, I think it's important to think about hydraulic impact to the aquifer. I think that's where you were traveling to. Okay, so inside of getting to a place where we're not shocking the aquifer by making large immediate draws, there's a buffer tank that we will, on an ongoing basis, draw water as required, run it through the reverse osmosis plant, and then goes into a demin storage facility, which mitigates the risk for shocking the aquifer, because you're drawing it over a longer period of time at a lower volume, treating it, and then putting it in storage. Again, you only use water when you're in the generate mode. And in the wintertime, do we expect that we'll get called upon? There's a probability that we will get called upon. But there's 2 peaks inside of each day. And we'll probably get called upon to help address peaks. And those peaks are short-lived. So there's 2 to 2.5 hours inside of each peak per day. It starts in the morning, starts to increase around 6:37 in the morning, and goes until 9 or shortly thereafter. Same thing happens when people come home from work in the evening. It starts again around 6:30. People are making their dinner, running the washing machine, turning their heat up, and using hot water. And then it'll start to trail off again around 9 o'clock. Inside of drawing water and using it for optimization of combustion is that we're going to be drawing from the tank. And the tank has a buffer that's much larger than the daily draw requirements, multiple folds larger. So in terms of instantaneous shocking on the aquifer, the risk is mitigated. The risk is mitigated. So in the event that you get to a place where something significant happens on the grid, you can get to a place where you say, we're not going to draw water, we'll run, and just run. And that has happened in other jurisdictions, like in winter storm in Texas, where you get to a place where everything else around you is kind of off the rails, and you have the ability to run, so you run. In New Brunswick, everybody would understand that. You get to a place where you really need the generation, and you run. But for the everyday circumstance, the risk is mitigated by averages and by a buffer that is storage. Did I answer your question?
Deputy Mayor. Yes, thank you, Mayor Black. Just one other piece to that. I mean, with the concerns around residential wells, has there been an approach to people in the area to check their wells now, to do something for them if something changes in their wells over the next 25 years? Like, what assurances do those folks have, or can we help to talk publicly about?
We send a notification to the residents within, and it's more than the radius of what's typical. So we doubled the radius, and we sent notification out to the residents that we thought would, potentially want to have their wells tested so that we could understand the baseline. And we got response from 3 residents. And today, we agreed to do additional follow-up and start petitioning them by phone.
Who's we?
So, thank you. I have a couple of questions, and it's more, I guess, current. So currently, ProEnergy is building an access road to get machinery in to be able to do the drilling, the hydrogeoseismic, all of that work. You've been issued permits from the Department of Environment and Local Government. I requested those, reviewed them, sent them to all of council. So I have a couple of questions about the permitting process, if that's appropriate. I had sent follow-up questions to the Department of Environment and Local Government, and I'm just curious to hear your comments on them. In one of the permits, it mentions that you have to implement a management plan. So I wondered if ProEnergy has done that, and what does it look like? There's also about a scientifically sound approach about the work that's being done on site. And again, kind of what does that look like? And the last one is a wildlife emergency response plan that ProEnergy also has to accommodate, has to do themselves, and give that to the Department of Local Government. I can stop there, but I have a follow-up question about that.
Okay. So the management plan would be our own plan, and that's a standard plan that we have, and yes, we have it. So happy to share that. The other 2 plans that you made reference to are the avifauna plan and the emergency preparedness response plan, and the Department of Environment has both of those from us.
Okay, perfect. And the only other question I had, and this is sort of a bigger, broader question. So
Okay.
within the permits, particularly the water supply source assessment permit, there's a lot of conditions in there that are left up to the proponent, up to ProEnergy, to kind of mitigate their own work. And I wondered what kind of ongoing oversight is there for ProEnergy doing that work and making sure that everything that is within the conditions of the permit are being followed as per those conditions within that permit? Like, it seems strange to me that there would be a permitting process and say, here, make sure you do all of this, okay? And then kind of leave it. And I just wondered where the oversight is. Do you have people from the Department of Environment who are visiting that site and just checking? So I wanted to know what that looks like, because I don't know.
Thank you, Mayor Black. So I can't speak to whether the Department of Environment has been decided or not.
No. Yes, you should.
I'm not speaking for them. I'm not saying that they have or that they haven't.
Yep.
Right? That's a better question for that.
Okay. And I guess the sorry, I said a last question. I have one more. I apologize, Councillor Tower.
That's all right.
Just with the road access itself, there's been concern from the public almost from the get-go of when the road construction started to be to happen. Again, some oversight. Obviously, the road is owned and maintained by DTI. It falls within our municipality, and as as the municipality, we don't really have any oversight on that road, other than if it becomes a complication, then we can reach out to DTI ourselves through governance and say, hey, you need to fix this. They own that road, they maintain it, and I wonder, has there been ongoing conversations with DTI around where that road hits, where the access road hits the existing road? Is the right-of-way, the sight lines correct? What kind of oversight is there on the safety of that road hitting the main road that people use every day?
So share the same concern. So inside of readiness for the site, we talked to the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety. We hired professional traffic management. They made an application to the Department of Transportation to reduce the speed in the zone and allow for partial lane closure, all in the interest of public safety. The very first thing we did before we started building the road was to clear and increase the line of sight in terms of on and off the road. It was the first piece of work that we did because I saw it as a risk for public safety. So,
And increasing the sightline falling in the guidelines of the permits that you were issued, right?
right,
Okay. Okay.
thank you.
I'll have a closing comment. Councillor Tower?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple more questions. First, you said that you were using this gas plant to help green up the grid. Now, is this greening up the grid because you're not going to be using coal? Is that what you're using it as a terminology?
No, the expression of supporting greening of the grid, sir, it was about bringing synchronous or rotating inertia onto the grid to reliably enable increased penetrations of renewables. So, and I'll say it differently. The permission to continue is the ability to reliably increase the amount of renewables on the grid. Because in the event that we increase all of these renewables in the absence of this system inertia piece that I continue to refer to, in the absence of that system inertia piece, and we get into brownouts or something unfortunate that's worse than that, then the public will say, this isn't working. We have reliability issues, we're spending all of this money, and this agenda that we're on is not working. By doing this work first and ensuring that all of the requirements for grid stability are put in place first, it enables the permission to continue on the greening of the grid and the green strategy that's in place within New Brunswick and the rest of Atlantic Canada.
Last question, Councillor Taylor?
Actually, it's two. Well, the other one is just a follow-up on a previous statement. But first, there's probably also a question for NB Power. But can you acknowledge or understand the fact that people in Center Village and extrapolate out through Midget, that putting 10 jet engines in the middle of a forest during, well, we've had in 2 of the last 3 years, major forest fires extended. Can you understand why they would be concerned about that?
I think forest fires are a real risk for all of New Brunswick. There's mitigation at site, which is fire protection system. Inside of one of our very first visits, we actually met with the fire chief. We talked about equipment and any additional equipment needs that might be necessary. And I think there's room for more discussion on both equipment and resources.
This is the,
Yeah, no, it should be.
in the interest of time, this
Yeah,
has been
yes,
great.
exactly. Yep, no problem.
Absolutely,
Yep.
go ahead.
And I appreciate it. The question was asked about selling power to Nova Scotia PEI.
Right.
In your statement, you were basically saying that your agreement is with NB Power, and if NB Power wants you to supply more energy, that's your job to do, and what they do is not part of your mandate.
And so I'm familiar with the system within Atlantic Canada. I know the New Brunswick system, the PEI system, and the Nova Scotia system. And how they interact together is that of mutual support. There's capacity sharing agreements that exist interprovincially with both Prince Edward Island and with Nova Scotia. The detail of what the intentions are for capacity additions and sharing agreements is a question for MB Power and Brad Cody.
Just for clarity, that's all. So your agreement is for 400 and you have the capability of 500, and the difference is what NB Power determines they might want extra, correct?
The difference between the two, so in the permits that were submitted, all of the permitting work in terms of environmental assessment and permits is based on 500 megawatts. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to, I wrote some stuff down just as some immediate takeaways that I'll just kind of share with council, and head nods would be appreciated. Number one, requesting the siting protocol, and not the executive summary, but the entire thing. That's the first thing we can easily attempt to do. The Indigenous support from 2024 of fact-checking and access to information about that RFP, that's number two. I think that council can request that. Number three, we need to have MB Power here for a presentation. And number four, just follow up with ELG about the permitting process for the work that's currently being done, and just, again, sort of questions on oversight. So I think those are some of the immediate things I think that we can kind of accomplish.
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't leave you with the impression that we commented on whether they were present or they weren't present. That wasn't the response. They're coming and going, so I was just not speaking for them.
Yep. No,
Okay,
yep,
okay, thank you.
Duly noted. You have the permits, you're doing the work, I get that piece. I was looking for that oversight around DTI on the road, and then the water supply source assessment and the WAWA permitting. And there are lots of things in there that are left to the devices of the proponent. That's all I was wondering, and if they're.
And so I responded to that question as well. Those management plans are in place, but they're only recently in place too.
Right, so
Yeah.
checking with the LG on oversight around the permitting, but also requesting management plan and wildlife emergency response plan. So, yep, okay. That, I just wanted to make sure everyone's okay with that. We'll try to get that as soon as possible, okay? Okay, thank you so much for being here, Mr. McIsaac, appreciate it.
I offer apology for the frustration that councillors have experienced, and and all of the residents within the community. And we're committed to doing the right work. It's critically important that we get it right, and we're committed to getting it right. Okay? Thanks very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And look forward to coming back.
Just so that everybody who's in the gallery, this is fantastic, by the way, actually having people come to a council meeting. So even though circumstances, are tough, we do have a full agenda ahead of us, if anyone would like to stay and listen to us. If a significant number of people are leaving, maybe we'll just kind of wait a few minutes for those in the public too who are watching, just to kind of let people shuffle out, because it'll be a little loud, I assume, with people leaving. So thank you again so much for the presentation. Thank you so much for the residents being here. So we'll just kind of take a break for a second to kind of let people shuffle out. Okay. All right, so, sorry about the pause there, everyone, but I think that it was needed to kind of quiet down the room a little bit. Moving on to number 3, adoption of minutes. 3.1, regular council meeting, September 8th, 2025. There's a motion, if a councillor could read that. Motion, Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I move that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of September the 8th, 2025 as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell, seconded by Councillor Butcher. Any questions or comments on that motion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 3.2, Committee of the Whole meeting, September 22nd, 2025. Motion there. Councillor Finney.
Move the council adopt the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of September 22nd, 2025 as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Finney, seconded by Councillor Tower. Okay. Any comments, questions? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 3.3, special meeting of council, September 23rd, 2025. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I move that council adopt the minutes of the special meeting of council of September 23rd, 2025 as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Martin. Questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to number 4, consent agenda. There is just one motion under consent. Deputy Mayor Estabrooks.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I move that council approve the consent agenda of October 14th, 2025.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Estabrooks, seconded by Councillor Tower. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, reports from administration. 5.1, Southeast Regional Service Commission Budget 2026. Miss Stephanie Thorne.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Black. Mike told me I could stay here and be one of you guys, and I'm really blessed to do that. I'm very excited. Thanks again for inviting me back to talk about our budget. I know it's budget, so it's kind of not as exciting as what you just went through, but maybe it will be. Who knows? I'm going to quickly go through this in the interest of time. I will try to be quick. So just a reminder of who we are as the Southeast Regional Service Commission. We are made up of 12 municipalities and 1 rural district. We do make up over 25% of New Brunswick population, and then more than 30% of New Brunswick's tax base. So we are a very large service commission in the province of New Brunswick. We have urban and rural municipalities, Anglophone, Francophone, 2 health networks. And so Roland, the CEO, says constantly we are the service commission that shouldn't work when you look at it on paper, but we do have a board that is comprised of mayors who are fantastic at taking off their municipal hat and putting on their regional hat when they're around our table, and the regional collaboration is fantastic around our table. So kudos to Mayor Black and the other mayors within our region. Moving on to the budget consultation, I always like to explain that a lot of consultation takes place with our budget process, as you're aware, because I know most of you did come to our session, the all-council session that we had a few weeks ago. So there are strategic planning sessions that take place, budget working sessions, as well as presentations as per our bylaws to the Finance and Budget Committee as well as the Executive Committee. And this is all prior to the proposal presentation to the Board of Directors, which takes place in August. What we heard through all of that consultation was that mayors and councils were worried about the assessment freeze, and so lower fees where possible was a plea that was given to us, which we're proud to say that we were able to do that. Maximizing the fund stacking opportunities with the RSSF fund, or the Regional Service Support Fund, so I'll show you that as we go through, and then continue to work collaboratively to provide better services for all, which is something that we hear from our board of directors all the time, and we as staff are very cognizant of as we put together our proposals for the year. So for the town of Tantramar, we're showing a decrease of 0.62%. So it's not a lot, but it's still a decrease. And so I like to really applaud myself for that, actually. So it's just a decrease of $3,400, and that is on your mandated services. So this would be the same services that you have year over year that you are required to participate in through legislation. And then this year we do have an opportunity for municipalities to participate in some shared services that have been requested by members, and I'll talk about those at the end of our presentation. So for the Regional Service Support Fund, as you may remember, because I talk about this every year, this was introduced in 2023 with local governance reform. There were some changes that came about for 2026, one of those being that the total envelope for all service commissions within the province of New Brunswick will now be set at 18 million, and then those funds will be divided based on tax base and population and some other factors to determine how much each service commission receives. In the past, that it varied year to year based on the community funding grant, but with the new funds that are coming to municipalities, they capped the RSSF envelope at 18 million. They also made it more flexible. So in the past, we were required to match 50% cost sharing based on the activity that we were doing. So if we were doing something on transportation, we had to be able to match 50% of whatever we were applying for that activity. The flexibility now is that we just need to match 50%. Our total budget can be included in that. So it's not based on activity, it's now based on total budget, which is great because we are a very large service commission. And as you'll see, our budget for the year is close to $50 million. So we will have matching funds throughout the whole commission, but it gives us more flexibility by activity. So in 2026, we have an allocation of just over 3.5 million. That is a decrease over what we had in 2025 by just about $200,000. So that's because of that cap. So we are losing a bit there, but the added flexibility gives us more playroom with the money that we're given. So our allocation for 2026, as I mentioned, 3.5 million. We do have carryover amounts from the last 2 years. We're given 3 years to use those carryover amounts. So I have budgeted, you'll see in our budget for 2026, we're going to be using $5.68 million worth of RSSF money, which is great because with that $5.68 million, we're able to do almost $16 million worth of activities. We have stacked funds, which means funds that we're bringing from other sources like fundraising. We have almost 4 million budgeted in fundraising for our trail. We have money coming in from ESIC, money coming in from Working MB. So there's a lot of external funders that we are capitalizing on to do almost $16 million in budgeted activities, and the cost to members being just over $700,000. So we're really happy with the new flexibility that's come with the RSSF. Now I'll just go through quickly, and I promise I will do this quickly, each of our services that we offer. And then as you can see, and I did distribute as well, a spreadsheet that shows how Tantramar is being affected by each of these services. So I won't dive too much into that because you do have that. Corporate services is a budget that the municipalities don't pay into because it's paid for by the other services. So this is where Roland, the CEO, his budget comes from, my finance budget, all of that is within corporate services, and we support all of the other services. So we are seeing an increase in this budget, and it's been increasing significantly since 2023 with the new services that were added in, because with more services and more staff, we need more corporate staff. We have some software improvements that we're looking to do, which will help the mayors. This includes eScribe. We're still using PDF versions of things that we send around, so we'll be moving to eScribe. We have a new translation software that we're using called Wordly, which allows us to, instead of having an actual live person doing our translation, we have a software which is working incredibly well. So these are all things that are coming in 2026. And an RSC awareness campaign. You may have already seen some billboards along the highway. The goal is to get the RSCs to become a name that households know what we do. So that will continue in 2026. Eco 360, one of my favorite services, is seeing an increase in their budget going up to just over 23 million. The cost for Tantramar is a small increase. This is due to residential units. We talk about this a lot. Your cost for this service is based on how many residential units are collected and brought to our facility for processing. So you have seen an increase in units for 2026, so the price is going up slightly there. However, the residential rate is remaining at $44 this year. That started in 2025. It was decreased in 2025. and so that will continue at 44. However, we are increasing our ICI rate, which is the industrial, commercial, and institutional waste that comes in. It's at $129 per ton right now, and we're going to increase it to $135 per ton. And again, the rationale for that is just trying to induce people to sort their waste, mostly in the commercial side as well as apartments, which is hopefully coming soon. And then we do have a large debenture for 2025 due to some capital projects that we're doing this year. So the debenture will start in 2026. We're building 2 landfill cells this year, which, as you can imagine, is very expensive because we are at the end of one of our rows for the landfill. So that's roughly $5 million there. So we are gonna see a large debenture. And then 2026 initiatives for them will be to implement waste sorting for multi-residential units. They're working on a bylaw right now to bring to municipalities to hopefully implement in the new year. And then we'll continue talks with circular materials for 2027. I've put this slide in just to show you, I think it's a really interesting slide to show how Eco360 is financed. You can see that 47.15% of all revenues is coming from that ICI rate. So this is run as a commercial business, and members are contributing 14.2% of total revenues for this. So we are heavily subsidized, I guess, by the ICI revenues, which is good for members. Electricity production, another one of my favorite services because I find it very interesting. This is the generator that's on site where we're taking the methane from the landfill and turning it into electricity and selling to NB Power for a very good rate, just so you know. So this is self-sufficient, and in 2026 we'll see the final year of our debenture payments for this generator, and it does not need to be replaced. It simply needs upgrades every 5 to 6 years. So that means that we're able to take any of the additional revenues that aren't needed in this service, and we can move that to Eco360 or move it to waste collection. So that's a really exciting opportunity for us to put some additional revenues into those 2 services to offer more projects, more services within those funds. Plan 360 is seeing a decrease in their proposed budget, but an increase to members, and this is due to exciting accounting formulas that take place on the back end. So we did lose some revenues on this side, and then we did have a lower second previous year surplus for 2026. So municipalities are seeing a slight increase there. We are adding 1 additional planner. If you ever talk to Sébastien Doiran, he'll tell you record years for building permits, and they just continue to happen. So we do need another planner to help continue with the 2026 initiatives of updating the municipal land use plans that are in effect and those that need to be upgraded. The planners are spending a lot of their time doing development because it is so busy in that area. Regional collaborative services, this is where we had 2 major projects in 2025 start. The first being the regional plan, which Sébastien and his team have continued to work on and should be completing in 2026. It's going really well. And then the regional trail system is another huge project that we are undertaking. The goal for 2026 would be to have construction segments of Moncton to Shediac completed, and that includes the Scooduk River Bridge. So as I had mentioned, we are looking at roughly $4 million in fundraising to come in for that. We're working with a lot of consultants right now to get that project and the fundraising campaign up and running. And then we do have funds set aside to promote the trail as a 365-day tourism attraction. You'll see here the budget is increasing because of that, mostly because of the bridge. It's very expensive to redo a bridge. But municipality contributions are decreasing significantly. The way that we've set this up going forward will be that the construction of the trail will be paid for through RSSF and external funding, so that members are only paying for trail maintenance, which brings down the cost to municipalities significantly over last year. For transportation, Mark Landry has been working very hard, getting a lot of studies done for transportation since 2023. The budget here is remaining pretty much the same as last year, and the contributions are decreasing. So if you'll remember, we do have a grant for close to just over $1 million, and that is to finance any infrastructure that the board decides to go ahead with once they make a decision on how they want to proceed with regional transportation. So an implementation transportation study has been done, as well as a feasibility study. They're working currently on a governance study. So all of these studies are being done to provide the board with as much information as possible so that they can make the best decision for what regional transportation should look like in our region. And should they choose to move forward with that, that will set up another fund that you would see next year that would be non-mandated, because not everyone is going to be required to participate in this, and it might look different for each municipality. So it will be kind of in an external service on its own. Community and social development, we're seeing pretty much the same budget as well, and a decrease here as well for municipalities because of that flexibility that we were able to use with the RSSF. So we're putting more money into community and social development. Anik and her team have been hosting community capacity building sessions, which are really exciting. They're going around to different municipalities. It's providing not-for-profit organizations with a lot of training that they might not be able to get otherwise, some help with their financing, help with applying for grants. So those have been excellent, and they'll continue those next year, as well as providing them with some online toolkits that they'll be able to access. They're also planning a community sector conference in April of 2026, which municipalities and not-for-profits will be invited to go to. And then they will also be meeting with their standing committee to see what else, what other initiatives they might be interested in. Infrastructure cost sharing is seeing a decrease in the budget as well as cost to members. Mark has been working very hard on setting up a framework for infrastructure cost sharing and what that looks like for the Southeast region. This service right now, we don't have any regional projects that are being cost shared. And so the groundwork has been set, and now this service will kind of stay the same until we have a project that comes up. So you should see this one stay pretty, I don't want to use the word stagnant, but it won't move much until a project comes up. Economic development is seeing an increase in their budget, but since 2023, we're proud to say we've kept the cost of members at zero for this service, and this is thanks to RSSF funding, but as well as money that is being received from Working NB, ESIC, some other outside or provincial funders that are contributing to economic development, so members haven't paid anything for this. We're adding the local immigration partnership. This was a service that and a department that was within the city of Moncton, but now they're giving it a more regional approach. So it is moving into our the umbrella of the Service Commission. So we'll see 2 additional staff as well as office space for them. In 2026, they'll be working on their regional economic development strategy, and then they will be having some new office space that they'll be moving into in 2026 that's shared with the planning department, because those 2 departments together have a lot of synergies. Tourism, a decrease in budget here again, a slight increase to members, but again, it's 8.10%, but it's insignificant amount. Really, they are working, continuing to work on the implementation of the opportunity development strategy that they are working with consultants for. So that will continue. They'll continue to promote regional tourism. You might have seen that they produced a leaflet earlier this year that had a few tourism destinations at each municipality. They're working on another one for the fall. And then the regional tourism calendar is our most visited page on the NBSE website, which Mark likes to say. So that's going really well. We have a staff member that's working on that, making sure that all the events in the region are updated on that. So that's an area that we're really proud of. Public safety is seeing no increase to the budget and a decrease in the cost to members. That public safety committee meets regularly, and they will come up with some projects moving forward. For 2025, they have distributed 48-hour, I think, emergency preparedness kits to all the municipalities for you to be able to hand those out to your most vulnerable residents. So that was one of their major initiatives for 2025. So we're excited to see what they decide to do in 2026. Mosquito control programs, Tantramar does not contribute to this non-mandated service. However, I like to talk about it because it's exciting. They're working with a drone now for the application of the larvicide, and that's gone really, really well, to the point where we are going to be adding a second drone and some other students for the summer months to help with this. And it's decreased the amount of the larvicide that is spread because it's such an efficient way to do this, and also it keeps the Argos out of the marshes, so it's a lot more environmentally friendly, which we're pleased to talk about. And then finally, a non-mandated service of regional waste collection. This is seeing an increase as well in the budget as well as to members, and this is determined again by the number of residential units that are being collected within your municipality. So this, just like Eco 360, will increase as you have more residential units coming into play. So as you can see here, we have total services that are mandated. You're seeing a decrease of 0.62%. When you add that non-mandated service of regional waste collection in, your increase for the year is 1.67%. So we were very happy that that is a minimal increase, and most municipalities are in the same boat where it's a very minimal increase for the same services being offered, and we continue to improve those services as we go year over year. We have 4 potential services that you'll have the option to participate in, and some information will be sent around to the CAOs. I'm hoping this week for these services. The first being asset management database support services. So this really helps your public works team. Our GIS team would be able to pinpoint where all of your pipes are underneath the ground, and then that would allow your public works team to just be able to go into an app and see where everything is. So the human error aspect of things would be taken out. So Sebastien and his team are working on that service. Bylaw enforcement management services. Many of our municipalities are struggling. A lot of the smaller ones aren't able to afford to have someone on staff. So they have asked us to kind of pool all of them together to see what a service would look like for that. We had originally talked about hiring 1 bylaw enforcement officer. However, this service has changed a bit based on the interest, I guess, from the municipalities. So we're still working on that. Engineering support services. This would be for municipalities who don't have an engineering team on staff. They would be able to call our senior engineer for help, maybe even just looking over contracts or looking over proposals from your engineering services. So this is kind of just a second set of eyes that could be helpful for a lot of the smaller municipalities. And finally, water and sewer system operator services. We have some smaller municipalities, again, who are struggling to find water operators. And so the thought here is that we would be able to have one who would be able to service multiple municipalities, potentially act as a trainer for some water operators that you may have on staff who aren't level 2. So this is, again, of interest to some of the smaller municipalities with water systems. So the proposed budget, when we did this the presentation, was $495,000 for all of those services. Costs would be paid for by all members who are choosing to participate in that service. There's no other revenues to offset it because we don't use RSSF funds on services that are not being used by all municipal members. So this has changed a bit. Some more information will go out shortly on that. And then quickly, I always talk about our capital budget. This is mostly Eco 360 and mosquito control that have capital equipment and projects that they take on. So we do have a vehicle and equipment replacement program that happens annually. And then major projects for 2026 on the Eco 360 side is the public drop-off expansion. If you've been into the site recently, you know that we've stopped having residential vehicles go to the landfill. They now go to the public drop-off site, and it is extremely popular, so we will be expanding that. However, we have some cost savings there because when it was designed originally, it was designed to be much bigger than we did, so we kind of phased it. So now the plans are already done. All that behind the scenes work has already happened, so we'll just be having the construction costs for that. So last year, you probably don't remember this, but our capital budget was roughly 11 million. And it's dropping to 2.7 for 2026. Financing for that, we do have a new debenture that we're looking at, but typically we were able to play with some funds throughout the year, so we don't typically have to go for as much of a debenture as we project. And then looking ahead, all of this has mostly happened, actually. So the municipal staff session, a big thank you to your staff who came to that. It was a great day of discussion with the directors, a lot of roundtable discussions that led to some really great feedback. The all-council session at the Avenir Center was also a great success. A lot of people coming in, a lot of great feedback that we got. The adoption of the 2026 budget will go to the board on the meeting at the end of the month. I believe it's the 28th, I don't know for sure, of October. And so with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Excellent job, as
Thank you.
always, Stephanie. Well done. Questions or comments from council? I have just a couple comments, but Councillor Tower?
Thank you. And thank you, you do make it fun, I must say. Yep, I appreciate that. Under the, I think it was Plan 360? Yes. We have an increase in hours, but it was a decrease for the province?
Right.
And what was the reason for that?
The reason behind that, sorry, I talk so fast. The reasoning, it's just accounting, basically, formulas that are happening in the background. So we did lose roughly $50,000 in revenues from another service that was kind of being plugged into there. So I had to drop the revenues from that. And then we had a decrease in our second previous year surplus. So anytime there's a surplus, it carries forward 2 years, and then I incorporate it as a revenue into our budget. So in 2024, I would have had a lower one than the previous year, so it decreases it as well. So it's mostly just accounting rationale that's causing that. And we try to not have those fluctuations, but in 2024, we did have a fluctuation there.
Thank you for that. And the other one is just a simple one, the mosquito program. How many people are involved with that? How many communities?
Sorry, we have 4 municipalities that are involved right now, Moncton, Dieppe, Riverview, and Fundy, Albert, which is, they're only in it because of how the boundaries changed in 2023 with local governance reform. So originally it was the Greater Moncton Pest Control Commission, where Moncton, Dieppe, Riverview were involved, and they moved it into under the umbrella of the Service Commission in 2021, I believe. So right now there's 4 communities participating, but if anybody else wants to join, we're open to it anytime.
Yes, I'm sure for a fee, right on. And this isn't spraying, but it is dropping something into the...
Right, I'm gonna try to explain it, but I don't know if I can very well. So it's an environmentally safe, it's called larvicide, and so it basically kills the larva. Mayor Black, you might be better at explaining this than me. I just see a mosquito and I'm like, no, thank you. But anyway, it's completely safe. And before they were kind of like throwing it out of the Argos as they went. So now it's a drone that's going by and spreading it more evenly. So it's using less material. So I can get you more information on that. That would be a better explanation than what I just gave you if you'd like.
That's very good, thank you, sir.
And I can't give any more information on that. So thank you for putting, all I can say is that the drone is pretty amazing. We saw it in, like just functioning around the Eco 360 site, which was pretty amazing. Thank you again. I just wanted to make 2 comments. I think it's important to note just how functional this RSC is. You did mention that. We are there to represent our communities, and we will, ask kind of those questions. What's in it for us? The taxpayers of the municipality pay that bill. It's mandated services. It's legislated, as you said, so we don't have a choice. We have to act. And I think that's where we all start from. Like we know we have to be in it, so let's make it work. And I think that's a really great conversation we have around the table, and with the CAOs, the administrators as well, being part of that conversation. One of the things that has set us far and above other RSCs is the fact that there's that communications piece from the RSC. It's important for the community to understand what the Regional Service Commission is and what it does. We all agreed as a board that it's not up to the municipalities individually to inform the residents of the Southeast region. It's up to the Regional Service Commission. And that communication piece is incredibly important when you're talking about the dollar value that gets taken from municipalities to the Regional Service Commission to do that work. So I just want to point that out. At the UMNB AGM, we had a conversation because the province is going to undergo Regional Service Commission reform, maybe not use that word, but an understanding of just what the Regional Service Commissions are across the province, because they're not equal. And again, the communications piece from our region came up time and again, and I think that's really important to highlight. I also think it's like kudos to you and the Regional Service Commission here for accessing the funding that we can get to lower the cost for municipalities. In 2025, we found out at that conference that some of the RSSF funding that's there for RSCs to access was left vacant, was left to just sit there. That's free funding for municipalities to be able to bring their costs down. So, you have been able to get that stacked funding, been able to access stuff like PEDAL and Working NB and all of those things to be able to keep our costs low. Especially at this time of year when we're going to see a property freeze assessment, as you stated. I think it's really important to note how great the work is coming out of the Regional Service Commission. So I just want to say that, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell.
Thank you, Mayor Black. Just one quick question, Stephanie. When you had the level 2 water inspector, now what exactly does he do? Like, I mean, I know he inspects water, but is that all of Tantramar? What about Viola? How does that work?
I'm not sure I can answer that question.
Okay.
My understanding, and I don't run a water system, is that the level 2 is able to do all of the aspects, whereas a level 1 operator can only do certain testing. I'm not sure that I know. Is there someone who could explain this better from your team? Yeah, so the level 2, I believe, would be able to train any of the level 1s who are in your municipalities to get them up to a point where they can do all of the tasks with the water system.
Yeah, and it should be noted, as you said, that these are sort of added non-mandated services that there's been a discussion around the table of, are there communities that are interested in this? And it still needs to be fleshed out a little bit about what that's going to exactly look like. But yeah. And
That clears the water a bit.
Okay, great.
clear, pun intended. Councillor Finney.
Okay. Stephanie, am I allowed to share this with a couple friends of mine that are CPAs so they can help me understand it even more?
The budget?
Yep.
Yeah. That's a public document, so yep, you can.
Second question is? May I direct it towards our treasurer? The thing is what you've heard tonight, Mr. Beal, do you anticipate any problems or any problems for us in order to meet what we're expected to pay and everything?
Well, we, as we know, there's been a couple of emails sent with the information the province has provided us for the budget. We saw a 1.81% increase in tax base, which is about $288,000. We also know a large portion of that, which will come out in the budget presentation, will have to be added to the budget for the economic development incentive portion. So we will see a very little increase. And the fact that the Regional Service Commission has kept their increase to a minimal, I think we can work within that.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Stephanie.
Councillor Tarver.
Thank you. Back to your mobile pickups. Yep. Which I don't think enough people know that they can use it either in Tantramar, like if it's in Sackville, if it's in Dorchester, Memricook. I don't think enough people know that yet, and I think that has to be brought to the public better. And on the more negative note, this is the second week now where I've had neighbors who've put one bulk item out and it's been left there. And they haven't picked it up. I try to convince them to call you, but I'm just passing. Yes, as I do, but I've been trying to get them.
Yes. So my understanding is that that bulk item, it could take 2 to 3 days for them to come back and pick it up, depending on how big it is and the truck that they have with them. But if it's not being picked up, absolutely call Eco360 and they will reach out to the hauler for sure.
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
You can stay for the rest of the meeting.
I'm good.
Okay, so moving on to 5.2, 2026 capital renewal funding. Mr. Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report was in the package, page 16, 17, 18. So as we know, budget numbers are coming out. So we've received, we received the two numbers from the province, one which was former equalization, and then the second one, which is a new fund called capital renewal funding. So I will go through some of the points in here. So the new capital renewal funding has been provided, and that starts in 2026. My understanding is it is over a 10-year period, and will increase each year as well. So the fund will provide new annual funding for municipalities to be able to renew infrastructure, and renew is the key word there. The funds provided to municipality can be used annually or be put into a capital renewal reserve fund and carry forward for up to 4 years. You can only go past 4 years with the approval of the province. They did say they would make special exceptions, but you can't. So unlike the CCBF former gas tax, you could use that early and then recover from it. This one, if you're going to use it for a larger project, you're going to have to build it up to use it. Now, I did not want to include everything in the Act, but I did put a couple of points here that do come specifically from the Act. The funds must be used to renew, replace, or upgrade existing assets the municipality owns. It would not be for creating new assets as per Section 42B of the Act, which states the local government shall not use capital renewal grant for the following expenditures: development of new infrastructure. So I also reached out to the province, Alex Berry, who has done the presentations on this, and I asked him some questions surrounding this. So it has to be renewal of an asset similar. So if you were going to renew an asset that was 3,000 square feet and make it 5,000 square feet, you can only use the equivalent percentage of 60% of that towards this capital renewal fund. So those will be the things, the checks and balances that will be put in place for the capital renewal fund. So if you're going to renew a water line with it and go from 400 to 600 mils, then it's percentage based. Okay, so there's rules that are going to be put in place with it. Funds allocated can only be spent after January 1, 2026 in accordance with 42A of the Act. Funding for all New Brunswick, of course, is $45 million for next year, 2026. Tantramar share is $525,841. The allocation was determined based on net asset value of the municipality's audited financial statements. So that was put in place. So discussion on this. So as we know, Dorchester Fire Station came in at $1.344 million over budgetary funds prior to any change orders being issued when it was awarded in June of 2025. Total project cost of the fire hall will be approximately $6 million. Large portion of the funds will be spent after January 1, 2026 with the expected completion in the summer of 2026. So in addition to the overage, we've had discussion on changing the roof from asphalt shingles to a metal roof in order for less issues, potential damage with the wind due to weather, and for a longer life prior to replacement of the roof structure. We had, prior to this, asked Rice Contracting what it would cost to increase the roof. Change the roof from asphalt shingles to a metal roof. The change order for that project would be just under $240,000 plus HST. We know that steel is very expensive. Steel roof is very expensive. So prior to this funding, we basically were looking at, no, it's not something we can add. We were already over budget. We may be able to add that in the future, sort of thing. We were looking at that. So if we did go with a metal roof, it would provide, of course, more long-term durability. A metal roof would be a standing seam roof with snow retention system. So what CAO and I had discussion on this, and we're proposing that we look at the capital renewal funding allocation for 2026 of the $525,000 be allocated towards the Dorchester Fire Station to cover some of the overages. And in doing so, we would also recommend changing the roof system from asphalt shingles to a metal roof. We do foresee that the asphalt shingle roof would be subject to probably replacement in a short window due to the high winds that are over there, due to the conditions of, due to how long they would last. So we think that would be a good investment. So of course, $249,607, which is the net of HST on that cost, would need to come from that fund, and the balance would help to offset some of the overage. So if this was approved, of course, it would likely be installed before January 2026. So we would have to take additional funds out of our reserve fund to pay for it this year, but then we would take less out of our reserve fund next year to cover the additional overage. So it would be an accounting rule. So the issue is, and why it's being brought here forward tonight, is the asphalt shingles have already been ordered. Rice Contracting has indicated that if we have a decision on this as soon as possible, the asphalt shingles can be canceled and the metal roof can be ordered. So it's essentially very timely because steel has to be ordered, delivered, and it needs to get put on, of course. The anticipation is that the outside structure will be completed before heavy winter, and they will work on the interior during heavy winter, and then do site work in the spring and into the summer, anticipation of our opening in the summer of 2026. With that, of course, future capital funding from 2027 and beyond, with numbers to be announced in the future, can be discussed at future budgets and looked at for different projects from water, sewer to streets to potentially fire and other projects as we look for future years. But given the overage that we're already experiencing, we did not feel we could do a change order of that significant without alternate funding, and this funding did come forward. So that is where we're presenting this to council tonight. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. I didn't realize it was that windy over in Dorchester, honestly. I'm joking. So I just want to make a couple of points. It's great to see that we have this capital renewal funding, but in the past, the provincial government and the former Higgs government and now the whole government are really pushing municipalities to make sure that they have asset management and plans in place, that they're making sure that municipalities are held accountable to what they have in the ground, above the ground, to make sure they're maintained, which makes sense. I think it's important to note some of the conversations at the UMNB AGM. While it's great to see investment from the province to municipalities for infrastructure, it's really just replacing, some people believe it's replacing money that we would have received through the IBA, remind me what the I is again, interprovincial, bilateral agreement, is that? Interdepartmental bilateral agreement. Anyway, an agreement between the federal, provincial governments that goes directly to municipalities for infrastructure replacement. So, anyway, it's good news. I'm not going to throw shade at funding. I'll open the discussion up. I think this is a wonderful use of this money personally. I think it would be great to have that metal roof on the fire department over there. So anyway, but I'll open it up to discussion. I don't know who put their, Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell?
Thank you, Mayor Black. It certainly is a wonderful idea. I don't know why it wasn't thought of the first time. I live there. I know the prevailing winds coming up off that marsh, and I'm just across the road, and I had to put a metal roof on. And I've seen sheets of asphalt, sheets of it going down over the hill, being blown off. So a great idea to put our metal roof on our fire station. The long way, it'll be the sustainability of a great fire department. Thanks.
Well said. Councillor Gauguin?
Thank you, Mayor Black. I'm a little hesitant at spending an extra $240,000 just on the whim, especially just going out to one contractor. I'm curious to know if there was other quotes that were obtained, or if it's just because we're going with Rice Contracting to go with that. That's why we decided to go with them.
Mr. Beal?
Yeah, so Rice Contractors, the general, and in the process of receiving the price for it, there's a $45,000 credit that we get because of the asphalt. If we went with another contractor, we would not receive the $45,000 credit from the asphalt. There was two types of asphalts that they did quote on. One was 150,000 plus HST, and the other was 215. The difference in the gauge, in the quality of the steel, was substantial. It was not even comparable. The reason we go with Rice Contracting is because they are the general contractor in construction, and the only way we would use alternate contractors is we would complete the project as submitted, which would be an asphalt shingle roof, and then we would have to put this on ourselves after Rice turns the facility over to us.
Yep, Councillor Gauguin, go ahead.
And I understand that you're wanting to bring down that 1.3 million over budget to allocate the additional funding. In my way of understanding this is a development that it can't be used towards the development of new infrastructure. like, have we checked to make sure that, you know, that this is not gonna be in violation of that? Because technically it is a new infrastructure. We're not building upon the fire department.
We are replacing a fire department.
Yeah, but-
But, Mr. Beal?
Yeah, I made a specific call to Alex Berry to confirm this. So, the infrastructure funding will go towards the Dorchester Fire Hall. Okay? It would not go towards a new roof per se. It would go towards the Dorchester Fire Hall. And basically, if we had a 5,000 square foot Dorchester Fire Hall before, you could, and it's 10,000 square feet, you can use 50% of the cost to reconstruct that towards that fund. So I went through the exact scenario of what the proposal is, and Alex was 100% on board with that, with this type of allocation and purpose of it.
Yep, Councilor Cogan.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the explanation. The extra, I don't want Sackville to suffer. Do we know if there's anything major that's going to need to get done next year, that the difference that it could be split into two, that we're going to have to pull out of a Sackville budget to, you know, for something in town?
Mr. Beal?
Yeah, so as we know, we're $1.3 million over budget. So we will be, at the end of this year, we'll be evaluating how much needs to come out of reserve fund or go into reserve fund. That $1.3 million is coming out of the reserve, have to come out of the reserve fund. And when I say over budget, we're over funding allocation, I want to say, because we had an application for borrowing for $3.5 million. We had $1 million coming from the gas tax fund, which is $4.5 million. So the difference of $1.3 million will have to come out of the reserve fund, because we can't use any more gas tax. We can't use any more borrowing, because that's all we can do. So essentially, that $1.3 million would be coming out of the reserve fund, and that reserve fund, I'll say it was 90% funded through former Sackville taxes, okay? And was built mostly from that. The last couple of years, the increases to it was from all of Tantramar. So coming out of this will reduce the amount that will come out of the reserve fund, which will benefit all Tantramar, being Sackville, the rural area, as well as Dorchester. So by reducing the amount coming out of the reserve fund will remain having a balance for all of Tantramar's benefit, which could be Sackville, which could be other things.
Councilor Tower?
Thank you. I guess now is just going to be kudos because you answered one of my questions. But I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm also surprised it wasn't thought of to begin with, a metal roof in this day and age, so.
Yep. Mr. Beal?
Yeah, I do want to answer that. It was thought of. It was discussed. Knowing we were already coming in over budget was the reason we did not put it in the original tender. We were already planning on having to come over budget, and in order to make this project work, the asphalt shingle was initially a compromise. So we had thought about it, but unfortunately, when we do construction of this, and if things are going to come in higher than the money we have to make compromises. I go back to this building in 2012. The first tender came in well over budget. We ended up re-tendering this project and taking out a number of things that cut back $1 million on the tender results. So we compromise and then look at how we can add to those in the future. No difference than this project. We are not putting in any solar, but we built the facility to plan for the solar that can be added. So the roof truss structure is built to be able to handle the solar in the future when we can get all additional funding for that. So we plan to be able to do that. But we didn't take it out completely. So we made compromises through the project to get to the point where we're at. Now that there's additional funding, we could look at doing that now versus doing that in the future, which would have been year 5 or year 10 potentially.
Councillor Tower, do you have a follow-up?
No problem. Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that was thought of. I would like to stress that I think we should invest what we can to make this fire department something to be proud of for a lot of years, and will carry us well into the future. So, and having this provincial funding is awesome. So I hope we don't make any more cutbacks. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Estabrooks?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Black. Most of my comments have been, or questions have been answered as they went along, but I think it is definitely, we have to look at it as an investment in Tantramar Fire Service as we bring that model forward. And knowing that area as well as I do, standing seam metal is definitely the way to go. So I'm glad this made itself available. Makes sense.
Okay. So we do have a motion for 5.2. Yeah, Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I move that council approve the use of the 2026 capital renewal funding from the province of New Brunswick in the amount of $525,841 towards the new Dorchester Fire Station build, and also approve an extra on the Dorchester Fire Department station contract with Rice Constructing Limited for the installation of a standing seam metal roof with snow retention system in the amount of $239,348.46 plus HST.
Moved by Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Last questions or comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 5.3, Bayview Estates Sanitary Sewer, Mr. Eppel.
It's going to be a tough act to follow with all these finance people. Bayview Estates, which is the new subdivision going in off Queens Road near Fairfield Road, is under construction. As part of that work, they found our existing 8-inch or 200 millimeter diameter concrete sanitary sewer. It was on a slightly different alignment than what it was thought to be. The sewer runs, it's a sort of a trunk sewer that runs from the intersection of Queens Road at Fairfield Road, cross country, and ends up down near Lorne Street at Crescent Street or the Via Rail station area. The sewer was found to be closer to the surface than was anticipated, with only about a foot of cover in places. As a result, it suffered from some unexpected freeze-thaw cycles, and the concrete pipe is quite brittle as a result, such that it has, when touched, fallen apart. Some minor repairs have been done to keep it going for the moment, but there is a roughly 47 meter section of pipe that needs to be replaced. Because of its condition, it is advantageous for Tantramar to have it replaced now while the developer's there working, and at the same time the developer would give us an easement for the pipe, which currently I don't believe we have, without having done an exhaustive search. Just wanted to correct one thing that's in the report. It identifies the developer as ADK Developments. It is in fact Salem Properties, Inc. The contractor on site would be MacArthur's Paving and Construction, and the engineering would be done by JRD Engineering, and they've already given us a preliminary sketch. The quoted cost is $23,652 plus HST. I'm suggesting that we allow for a $5,000 contingency so that we don't have to come back to council should things change when we get in the field, such that the cost would be $28,652 plus HST. And this is an unbudgeted, unplanned item, but we had planned to do replacement or upgrading of the Middle Sackville lift station this year, which has not proceeded after we did some engineering. We realized that we could not do to it what we had done at the Queens Road lift station. So we had in the budget about $450,000, same budget coming out of the utility capital. So we would take a partial reallocation of that money to pay for this. And the Middle Sackville lift station upgrades will come in a subsequent budget, but we need a lot more money to do that. So we are recommending to proceed with replacement of 47 meters of sanitary sewer at this time. There are some options, which is to proceed at the quoted cost, defer replacement to allow for budgeting, which may increase the cost if we have to go in after the development's done, or do nothing and try and cobble together repairs and keep it going. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Eppel. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Hicks?
Thank you, Mayor Black. Here we are talking about budgets, and I don't agree with tendering anything out that can be done in-house. This is 12 lengths of sewer pipe, 12 inches deep. It's a day's work. We have staff that are fully capable of doing this work. I do not agree with tendering it out. I feel we're tendering stuff out that we can do in-house. I'd sooner see it done in-house, and I will be voting against tendering it out.
Councillor Tower?
Thank you. I'm kind of curious if Mr. Eppel has some kind of feedback as to why we're not doing it in-house.
Mr. Eppel?
So Public Works has work that they are committed to for this year, of which they will not get to all of this year. So to take this on means that something else would have to be knocked off the list, number one. But number two is that there is a contractor on site. It is on other people's property, not our property. So to go in and do the work would take time for us to arrange. We could not do it at the same time that the developer's in there doing their work.
Councillor Hicks?
I'd like a follow-up on that. We can go in on people's property and renew sewer lines without an easement. They cannot stop the town from going in. And like I say, that's only a day's work.
Any other questions or comments? We do have a motion coming forward, so. Okay. All right, so there is a motion for 5.3, if a councillor is willing to read that motion. Deputy Mayor Estibrooks?
Gets it to the floor. I move that council authorize staff to retain MacArthur's Paving and Construction and JRD Engineering to replace approximately 47 meters of sanitary sewer main in the amount of $23,652 with an additional $5,000 contingency for a total amount of $28,652 plus HST.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Estibrooks, seconded by Councillor Martin. So motion's on the floor. We've had a mover and a seconder, so there is room, there's space here for extra comments, if anybody had a comment to make. I think it's important to note at Committee of the Whole, when we have Public Works and Engineering report, Mr. Eppel and his department kindly put at the top of that document the number of work orders that we received within a month, the number of work orders that are worked on, and the amount that's left over that continues to need to be in a stack that need to be worked on by municipal staff. Sometimes that number goes down, but a lot of times that number is up, which means that there are a significant number of jobs that our municipal staff have to do in Public Works, not just in Public Works, but in every department we have. So, you know, I think it's important to note that there's a lot of work that needs to get done, and tendering something like this out to be able to get the work that we need done within the municipality, and to be able to do this work, as Mr. Eppel has said, on the property without having to go in later and maybe have a cost increase on it, is certainly important to note. Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I do agree with Councillor Hicks on this. I mean, we've had a great summer. We had a great opportunity to be able to get a lot of outdoor construction and work done, and to put this money forth when I agree, it could be done in-house. So I will be voting no against this also.
Deputy Mayor Esterworks.
Thank you, Mayor Black. Just a question for Mr. Apple. Where would you put this piece of work, the pipe that we're talking about, the 47 meters of pipe? Where would you put that on a priority list? Would you consider it to be of a high enough priority? Obviously it is, because we're looking for funding, but if you, in the interest of using our bargaining unit to its fullest, I know that there's not going to be any layoffs or lack of work. I understand that, and I do understand the idea behind contracting out. But maybe if you could just talk to us about maybe what would have to give if they were to do this in-house versus what would the example be of something that would be lower priority that might not happen, that you wouldn't contract out, that's all.
Mr. Apple.
We've just spent a few days doing sidewalk on King Street. So that would, had we been having this conversation sooner, might be something that might have dropped off the list. Because this infrastructure is brittle and has broken in places and is close to the surface, it would be higher up the list for us. Would it be at the very highest? Perhaps not. There are a lot of things that Public Works gets called in to do that doesn't take an excavator bucket to do, or a backhoe, but we get given to do, and we get given to do year in, year out, and it takes up a great deal of the time through the course of the year. We can't let those things go, but those demands on Public Works do affect the ability of Public Works to do some things like this.
Councillor Gauguin.
Thank you, Mayor Black. It's unfortunate that we're getting back into this situation of having to tender it out. We spent, what, $60,000 to do culverts on Walker Road, and then another almost $30,000. That's almost a full-time employee. Maybe we should be looking at staffing levels if you guys are that overworked, that, maybe we're not staffed properly, that projects like this could be done in-house. I know it's gonna come eventually with the staffing review, but definitely it's something that I'd like to see us, because obviously if we're doing it in-house, we're gonna be saving a considerable amount of money, plus adding an extra couple of staff on to do other projects and stuff like that. So I think that's definitely a consideration for the future.
I'm not sure if any staff want to respond to that. Nobody's pushing their buttons, so I'm going to say no. Councillor Tower.
I'm just curious, is Public Works at full complement now?
Mr. Apple.
Public Works is currently down 2 people. We've had to move people around because we had a utility operator, actually 2 utility operators leave us. And so we've temporarily loaned someone from the transportation crew to the utility crew in order to keep that going. But that's the only 2 positions that we're down at the moment.
Okay. So we've got a motion on the floor. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Can nays show hands, please? So Councillor Finney is a nay, Councillor Hicks, and Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell. Motion passed. Moving on to 5.4, motion from Councillor Debbie Wiggins-Caldwell.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I move that council request staff to undertake a comprehensive pedestrian safety study, and especially along Route 106 at the intersection of Woodlawn Road and Cape Road, Dorchester, and report back to council with the findings and the recommendations.
Moved by Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell, seconded by Councillor Gauguin. questions or comments?
Yes, I
Councilor
do
Wiggins Cobble,
have
did you
a
want to speak to?
PowerPoint on this, if you could pull it up. Thank you. Now, this section of road that we're looking at here, you'll see the line, because sometimes a picture will say 1,000 words. So that straight line that you see going to, that's what's left of the sidewalk. That's where people from we have a manor there, we have a very busy Thirsty Whippet that's located on this section of road. And I measured off from that line to the center line, it's 9 feet, a little under 9 feet. So you've got dump trucks and heavy equipment coming down that road, and if you have somebody walking to get to the post office, to get to the library, to get to the scare, very, very dangerous section. Okay, next one, please. There's where I measured. Okay. And this is where it goes up to, and at the top of the hill, that is the Thirsty Whippet. Now, on the other side of that, when you cross over, which is no sidewalks, no crosswalks, no nothing, you can get on a sidewalk. But there's nothing indicating that there's a sidewalk or how people get stuck, and it's right on a turn. And I know this, they say about a sight line. That's great. Sight lines are great for vehicles. I mean, you're in a vehicle, you're doing the speed limit, maybe a little over the speed limit. So that's dangerous for the drivers if you put that. What about the pedestrians? What about the pedestrians walking there and you come down at 50 kilometers an hour in a dump truck and you've got a child or a mother in a stroller pushing it across the road to get to the sidewalk? What are their sight lines? What are their protections? That's what I'm trying to get up here. Next slide, please. Now here's where the sidewalk ends. That's right on the side. There's the manor's there. You have the manor. So it's a cement pot right up the back road to the wood lawn. But this is where it ends, right across by there's the manor and the Thirsty Whippet. So somebody would have to cross the road and to get on that piece of narrow little pavement that we've got left called a sidewalk, which years ago in the past, there was a sidewalk on that side of the road. It has since not been there. Next slide, please. And this here is where you're crossing at the square. This is right in front of the Village Square takeout. Now you're crossing across onto the other side. Now anybody that's in a wheelchair, a walker, a stroller, anything, as I had reiterated before, that's very dangerous getting down there. The sight lines are almost nil. Next one, please. And this one is the same. This is just to show you where it's getting up. You have a lip. You see the lip across there. It's not even eligible for, if you were in a wheelchair or in a motorized vehicle that somebody, I know we have a couple residents that ride these motorized wheelchairs. You can't get up over that lip. Next one, please. And there's the height, approximately 5 inches for them to be able to get up there. And there's the critical need. This is this dangerous crossing. We have impaired people that are visually impaired, and to try to make that serious, it's just an accident looking for a place to happen. It's very dangerous. Next one, please. And this one here is at the end of guardrail. As you see the guardrail, this is coming along. We have sidewalks on one side, then you cross the road, right where my arrows are pointing. There's no crosswalk. There's nothing indicating that you can get onto that other sidewalk if you can access that without a crosswalk. There's no markings on the road, there's no zebra striping, and there's no nothing. And if anybody's been around, you'll go in Moncton, and some of the streets in Moncton, there's quite a few of them, actually. I went and located some of them. Some of the biggest one I see was on McLaughlin. You see these things in the center of the road. I'm not a professional on this. I'm leaving this to our engineers and that to be able to bring back some information on how those work and how the safety of that is. Okay, next one, please. Yeah, and this is another one. There's no, if you had somebody coming down to the VCC trying to access that, no crosswalks to get across, no lip for anybody in a wheelchair to get across. You can't access our VCC in that situation. Next one, please. And this is the wide crossing that's required to get down to Station 8. That's another thing. This is coming down the corner hill. A lot of people go to Station 8 because we have a food center there. very unsafe crossing for pedestrians. And next one. And there's the curb to get to the library. There's no way if you're in a, as I said before, if you're in a wheelchair or stroller, you have to maneuver your way to get up over that curb to get into the library. And the same thing here at the post office. There's no access unless you go down. And this is going to be even busier because our new fire station is right next door. So there's no way for people to safely get across that section to the post office. And next one. Now this is at the school. This is what the kids have to walk on from the school. When they exit across the school, that's their goat's path that they're traveling on with bicycles, and this is what they have to go through. But I must say, we do have our school sign, which we never had before. That's been put up, so very thankful for that part. And another one, that's what the kids are to walk on that and down the side. That's their sidewalk from the school. And that's it. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Councillor Gauguin.
So I'm just going to read a little comment just to go on to Councillor Wiggins-Caldwell's request here. Says, to whom it may concern, as a leader of our local Beaver and Cubs group, we spend the majority of time traveling throughout our community. We also have a large group of parents that drives to the DVCC to both drop off and pick up youth. Driving or walking through the square has its risks due to drivers who fail to stop, fail to slow down, and fail to observe. 2 years ago for Earth Day, we cleaned around the square, and I have to say, we will not do it again. The speed of the drivers coming down the hill making the turn and the drivers who fail to stop at the posted stop sign make anything in the square too risky. We would love to take our group on a hike to Richard Park or to the outdoor rink, but with no clear crosswalks, or second, risk of speeding drivers through the intersection, we cannot. Our parents voice concerns that other drivers have come up the hill going too fast. The safety of the streets in Dorchester seems to be forgotten, and this is unfortunate, especially with such a large active youth organization. We work so hard to be active in the community, but unfortunately the center of our community is simply not safe.
Any other questions or comments? I did just have a quick question. You were in your slideshow, and I appreciate that. I really do. Some of the, because your motion is at specifically along Route 106 at the intersection of Woodlawn Road and Cape Road. So right in the square, right? That's where you want to look for the pedestrian? Okay.
On down and, yes.
It's like some of the pictures that you took were kind of like further down, but is it really just in that core area? Like
No,
right-
it's 106. It's down the 106 even
Okay.
to the VCC and up the Cape Road to across from the library, across
Okay.
from the post office, the school, the park, and
So along Route 106?
Yes.
At the intersection?
yes.
But so not just the intersection, but along those routes?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry, Mr. Eppel?
Was it also partially up Woodlawn from the slides?
Yes, along with the manor and the Thirsty Whippet, that's up Woodlawn, Mr. Eppel.
Okay. So, we've got specifically along Route 106 at the intersection of Woodlawn Road and Cape Road, but are we also including School Lane in there too?
Yes, yes. Cape Road, yes.
Just to make, like, because we're, like,
Sure, sure.
if that is the intention to include it, we don't want to omit it, right?
Absolutely, thank you, I
So,
appreciate that, Mayor Black. Yes, it is School Street and part of Harrop Avenue. Harrop Avenue I didn't do that because School Street.
Ms. Goodwin?
The motion will need to be amended, and then the amendment to the motion would need to be voted on, and then back to the motion as amended.
Okay.
So I think we need to sort out the amendment first. It sounds like a comprehensive pedestrian study of Dorchester.
So can the mover move the amendment?
It needs to be a new motion.
Okay.
Yep. So yes, it would be a new motion on the floor.
Right, but it would be amended motion. But can the mover of the original motion make the amendment to
Yes.
that motion?
Yep. They've done it, we've done that way before.
Yeah. So I guess we'll go with pedestrian safety within Dorchester.
So I move that council request staff to
Amend.
undertake a comprehensive pedestrian safety study within Dorchester.
Yes,
And report back to council with findings and recommendations.
excellent.
So is that you, that'll be your
Yes.
amended motion?
Yes.
Okay, and do we have a seconder to the amended motion? And I probably should have asked that question. Councillor Gauguin, are you okay with that amendment since you seconded it? Okay, and seconder is Councillor Gauguin for the amended motion. So now we have an amended motion on the floor. Sorry, Ms. Goodwin, is that?
You're voting on, sorry.
Again, not the
Your vote, no,
No,
we
'cause
cannot
it's-
do a friendly
it's
amendment for
substantially
this. It's
changes.
substantially
Yeah.
changing the idea of the motion. So the vote now is on the amendment, then we'll go back to the
Okay.
actual motion.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll vote on the amendment to that motion. We have a mover and a seconder. I guess any comment on the amendment, because we can have a comment, we can have a comment on that amendment? No? Okay. So mover and seconder, so all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. So now we'll go back to the original motion, which includes that amendment. So we have the mover and the seconder on that, correct? Any additional comments or questions before we put that to a vote? No? Okay. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. There we go. That was good discussion, democracy at work. I like that. All right, so on to number 6, bylaws, 6.1, third reading, bylaw number 244V, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 244, Town of Sackville zoning bylaw. There is one motion there, there's no discussion on this, this is just the third reading of that. If a counselor would be willing to read that, I'd appreciate it. Counselor Gauguin?
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 244-V, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 244, Town of Sackville zoning bylaw.
Moved by Counselor Gauguin, seconded by Counselor Hicks. Questions or comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 6.2, first and second reading, bylaw number 2025-20, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy. There's two motions there, so if a counselor could read both, that would be, sorry, Counselor Butcher, did you put your hand up? Okay, Counselor Butcher.
Thank you. I move that council give first reading in name only to bylaw number 2025-20, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy.
Moved by Counselor Butcher, seconded by Counselor Finney. Question or comment on this? No? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Counselor Butcher?
Thank you again. I move that council give second reading in its entirety to bylaw number 2025-20, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy. Pursuant to Section 5(1) of the Business Improvement Areas Act, RSNB 2014, C-102, be it enacted by the Council of Tantramar as follows. 1, a special business improvement area levy in the amount of 20 cents per $100 of assessment for the year beginning January 1st, 2026 is hereby imposed on all business properties within the area described in bylaw number 128, being a bylaw to designate and establish a business improvement area within boundaries of the town of Sackville, enacted on December 14th, 1987. 2, proceeds from the levy in the amount of $29,010 may be remitted following receipt by Tantramar to Main Street Redevelopment Sackville Incorporated for the purposes contained in the budget submitted by Main Street Redevelopment Sackville Incorporated and approved by Tantramar Council on November of 2025. 3, upon passing of this bylaw, Tantramar bylaw number 2024-16 is hereby repealed.
Moved by Counselor Butcher, seconded by Counselor Wiggins Caldwell. Just a quick comment on this. In the past, We've had some moments where the BIA we've been trying to get the budget from them. So oftentimes that second piece will have a dollar amount missing. It'll just be a blank because we're waiting for it. And then we can add it into the third reading. That dollar amount is accurate. We do have the budget. Oh, sorry. Sorry, say again, Ms. Goodwin. Okay.
Thank you. So the number, as explained at the committee of the whole, the number in the current bylaw is what last year's number was, and it gets changed before a third reading once we receive the budgeted numbers from the province and the proposed budget from Main Street redevelopment. We do have that number for 2026 now. We have provided that number to Main Street redevelopment. So the next step would be they would present their budget along with the remainder of the budget presentations, and that the budget would get approved, and then third and final reading.
This is why it's important not to have side conversations during a council meeting. I apologize for that. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Any other comments or questions to that motion? Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 7, mayor and council statement and inquiries. I usually will say, I'll leave it up to council, but I do want to make one quick one. I want to recognize and give huge praise to our own Councillor Butcher, who was nominated for the Prime Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence, one of only 5 in the Early Childhood Education Award for the year. Many people in this room have had either family members or kids of their own who have gone through Preschool Inc. The number of kids I think that Councillor Butcher has had through her doors is a huge number. The number of lives of kids and parents that she has touched with, being an amazing teacher within Play School Inc. Can't be understated. Well deserved. Congratulations. It's an amazing achievement. Oh yeah, we're not supposed to clap. I apologize for that. I'll open it up to council as well. Councillor Wiggins-Callow.
Thank you, Mayor Black. Just a shout out to Nicole Porter, who received on Sunday the Molly Cool Award, which I attended. And she is the first Indigenous lady to receive this award. And she's Fort Folly First Nations. So congratulations again to Nicole.
Any other councillors? Councillor Finney?
Just want to say I attended the Molly Cool presentation as well. Very, very informative, and I met some really nice people. And met another old friend that I hadn't seen for a long time that used to be on the Riverview Council. So, yeah, it was very good, and congratulations to Nicole. So.
Okay. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I'm wondering if our engineer could have a look up by Mauer Drive. I had a complaint on the weekend that it's very dark up at that intersection. McDonald's are not turning their decorative lighting on, and that was in the agreement. They're supposed to have that on. And maybe there's a street light or something we can put there. I don't know. I didn't look at it, but I had a complaint on it.
Mr. Upper, did you want to respond at all?
McDonald's, when they were doing their renovation earlier this year, were advised that they had to get their decorative streetlights repaired and operational. I understood that they had done that. They had told us they had, but you're saying they're not currently working. Could it?
They weren't working.
Was it just one or was it several? I'm just wondering if maybe they had a breaker trip and they didn't notice.
I'm not sure. I just had one complaint on it that it's very dark up there for pedestrians crossing the road and things, so.
I wanted to make one more quick note of praise. Just like Councillor Butcher, there was another teacher within Tantramar, Julie, I have to get her name right, Madam B.A. So I always, because my daughter had her for a teacher. She was also awarded the Prime Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence, specifically in French, Social Studies, and Humanities. She was the one of only 2 recipients in the Maritimes and the only French immersion teacher recognized across Canada. So again, lots of students have gone through her class at Tantramar Regional High School, so it's a huge honor for her to win that award as well, so I thought I'd point that out. And also, I guess I'll make one more quick comment. Our U15 Sackville Hurricanes competitive provincial team finished second in the province at the tournament this year. They lost their last game 10-9. So it was a little bit of a nail biter. They almost won that game, which was in Beaubassin, and they lost to Beaubassin. But it was a great season, and I just want to congratulate them on a second place finish in the province overall. So, okay. All right. Notice of motion and resolution. So it says 8.1 notice of motion, Mayor Andrew Black. I have a notice of motion that I would like to make around a fulsome and transparent conversations with residents of Tantramar and a request for a comprehensive EIA. I will leave it at that because I can't speak to the motion. I will mention within our procedure and organization of council bylaw, under 2B, a member, not me, but another member can make a motion to immediately address the motion that I am proposing if it needed to be expedited. It would have to be unanimous consent, so a member would have to make a motion to ask for my motion to be read immediately. That would be put to a vote. It would have to be unanimous consent for us to deal with that notice of motion now. It is in our bylaw. It's very worded incredibly oddly. I will admit that I put it in ChatGPT to do a summary for me because it's not worded very well at all. So I have a notice of motion. As it is right now, it will be at the regular council meeting in November. If a councillor was willing to make a motion to ask for it to be addressed now, then it would have to be, we would make that motion, there'd be a mover and a seconder, but it would have to be unanimous consent for me to be able to read that motion tonight. So I will leave it at that. I see 2 mics, Councillor Tower, I'm not sure who pushed first. Councillor Tower, maybe?
Thank you. I move that we present your motion tonight and not delay it.
Okay. Did you? Oh, Ms. Goodwin has something ready to be read to. Okay.
First one, pre-planned. Okay. I move that the notice of motion submitted by the Mayor Andrew Black regarding resident engagement on the proposed rigged natural gas project be permitted to come forward for consideration at this meeting in accordance with section 15(2)B for the bylaw number 2022-03 meeting procedure bylaw.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Gauguin. So, I mean, I don't think there's really any discussion. I don't think you can. So, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. No. So the motion is, I move the council send formal letters to Premier Susan Holt, MP Dominic LeBlanc, Minister Lepage, Minister Kennedy, CEO of NB Power Laurie Clark, and John McIsaac of Pro Energy Canada, urging open, transparent, and fulsome engagement with the residents of Tantramar about the proposed Riggs project in Centre Village, and that a full and comprehensive environmental impact assessment be completed and made publicly available to ensure transparency and informed decision-making. seconded by Councillor Tower. I'm not going to get into too many details, but I do want to mention that some of the frustration from the citizens who are concerned about this project lies in the fact that they have not been adequately informed or engaged by several of the people who are on this list. I think that if there was a push by the municipality consistently for these people to address the citizens, that there would be an opportunity to talk and to be informed better, more regularly, which I think would help the situation a lot more. I also want to make a comment that I had sent an email to the Premier and Minister Lepage before, asking for a comprehensive EIA. That request was all but denied by Minister Lepage. Now, the reason I have included this in this now is because the Premier had met with a few members of the Tantramar Stop the Gas Plant group at an event in Shediac, and the comment from her, they had a meeting with her separately in Fredericton, and the comment from her was that the comprehensive EIA was not off the table. So currently it's a deterministic EIA, but comprehensive was not off the table. And so I think that it would be appropriate to send this letter again, requesting that a comprehensive EIA be done on that project. Maybe the answer will be no, but maybe, with the support of council on that, that the answer could potentially be yes. So that's the basis of this, this motion. And I would open it up to questions or comments. Councillor Hicks, I think.
Thank you, Mayor Black. So if I understand this correctly, we're not asking for the project to be killed, we're just asking for an EIA to be done.
Absolutely not.
And asking
Sorry,
for.
absolutely, yes. We're not asking, we're not looking to be opposed to the project in any way.
Yeah.
We're not asking to be in favor of it in any way. We're not asking it to be canceled. We're helping our citizens to be adequately engaged. And I, you know, I did say leave it at residents. Now, that includes engagement for some people out there who may be in favor of this project. There could be people who are in favor of this project that don't want to speak out, but if there's an opportunity for them to be adequately approached by these individuals as well, this motion opens that up. So no, it does not mean that we are opposed, in favor, canceling it. It is supportive of residents.
So it's EIA and just to engage with the public more.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Gauguin?
Thank you, Mayor Black. Obviously, with the gallery presence that we saw tonight, this is definitely needed. Just a random question that kind of bothered me at the last one when you had mentioned that Councillor Tower's motion wasn't within jurisdiction of municipality. How does this differ from that one?
It's a good question. The jurisdictional piece is around asking another order of government to cancel a project. That's something that we don't have the authority to do. We couldn't do that ourselves. And so asking another order of government to cancel a project or to potentially, and these were the comments I was making, or to, you know, switch their focus from one project to another, is not something that we have the ability to do. The last piece of the last motion, you know, requesting a meeting with the Premier, we could do that. That's something that could be done. But the other two pieces in there of canceling a project is, in my opinion, beyond the scope of our jurisdiction, which is what my comments were specifically. Other people had other comments, but that's the difference. Here, this is something we can do. We can ask, look, our residents have concerns, and as the people who are elected by those residents, we would like you to be able to engage with them more fulsomely.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Councillor Finney.
What I'm thinking of the fact is that we haven't received enough information from anybody. And I'm hoping that this motion will be part of what we're asking. because we found out a lot of answers to things after the fact, as I said to John tonight. We made our decision based on, I'm going to be honest with you, they lied. So when you lie to me, I have a hard time trusting you. So the thing is, and we found out tonight that a lot of information we never got from MB Power. We really haven't got a lot of information from Pro Energy. A lot of the things, for instance, like you asked about the fact that what is the guideline or something that they're following, building that road in there and everything. So,
Yep.
and has anybody from the government turned around and come, and were they there to check out what they're doing? Or is, like you said, they got a free rein? I hope this motion is that, so that we will get more information, as well as the people that are here, that were here tonight, and very concerned up in that area.
Well, and it's a good point. And I think as the project rolls along, one of my worries, and I'm sure if people were still in the room who were here earlier, one of my worries is that the engagement, once it's done, drops off. And I don't want to see that happen with this project, the engagement, the information that could come. Mr. McIsaac stood and said, I can come back to council anytime, or, making promises, and that's wonderful. That is great. But, let's have some plan, and part of this could incorporate that kind of language. Deputy Mayor Estowicz?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Black. Just for clarity, the asks were, could you repeat, fulsome?
Yeah, sorry. I move that council send formal letters to Premier Susan Holt, Dominic LeBlanc, Minister Lepage, Minister Kennedy, CEO of MB Power Lori Clark, and John McIsaac of Pro Energy Canada, urging open, transparent, and fulsome engagement with the residents of Tantramar about the proposed Riggs project in Centre Village, and then the comprehensive EIA. Now, the open, transparent, and fulsome, those are words, but there can be broad interpretation in there. So how we decide to act on those words, what that actually means, we'll have to see how that plays out from them. But certainly the letter that can be drafted can be shared with council before it goes out. Deputy Mayor Estowicz.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I think it would be important for us to see the letter. The engagement piece, I think, is important. I've said from the very beginning that the environmental questions need to be asked in the interest of staying in our lane, as we often talk about. I don't know if requesting a comprehensive EIA is within that lane. Would it be more appropriate to say that appropriate EIA processes are followed instead of asking for comprehensive? I'd just like to hear other people's comments, maybe.
Yep. Councilor Tower?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think we should water this down at all. Asking for a comprehensive one is what we should be doing. It should have been done automatically. We shouldn't have to have asked. When things are happening within our municipality that affects our roads, possibly our water, our citizens, that's our mandate as far as I'm concerned. And from what I heard in St. John, there were a few other municipalities agree. So I don't want your motion watered down. I think it's, when I spoke to the Premier about it, and she didn't tell me it was off the table. She didn't know whether she could do it. And so I thought, well, for the safety of our people, to help them determine what's going on, a comprehensive is needed. So if we don't put comprehensive in there, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It means nothing.
Yeah, and I think around the jurisdictional piece or staying in our lane, like the EIA process is legislated. So there's a deterministic and there's a comprehensive. One triggers one triggers the other. So because the legislation is already there at the provincial level, which impacts this municipal, well, not a municipal project, but a project that's within the municipality, I guess that's where I'm coming from for the kind of staying in our lane and where our scope is. I guess in the end, it can't hurt to ask. It's possible that because it's so legislated and so regulated, the answer could come back as no. But I think an official formal letter from the municipality for that process would be appropriate. But Councillor Gauguin.
Thank you, Mayor Black. I agree that definitely we shouldn't water it down. If I could suggest maybe one modification is adding continued. When you're talking about engagement, continued, because once the project's done, if it does end up happening, we want to know what is going on.
Okay.
And if there's any issues or
Yep.
like, and I'm sure the residents would appreciate being informed of what.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of made a comment to that, that could be kind of included in it, but if it's
Yeah.
in the motion, then it makes a little more sense.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Open, transparent, fulsome, and continued engagement.
Absolutely.
So that's a friendly amendment, am I right in that? Okay. So sorry, you're making that friendly amendment, is that correct? Okay. Okay. Counselor Finney?
I was gonna say, as a matter of fact, I agree with Councillor Tower. The thing is we need to be a little hard on them to turn around and ask for what we're looking for. The thing is I kind of believe in the idea of the fact is if we overstep our boundaries, we can always ask for forgiveness instead of permission. We see them doing it all the time, both provincial and federally, and we're doing it for the benefit of our community and for the citizens here, so. So anyway, I agree with Councillor Tower that we need to be a little more aggressive in asking for a comprehensive and, don't water it down.
So, thank you for that. And Ms. Goodwin had just mentioned that since there's a friendly amendment, the mover and the seconder need to be okay with that friendly amendment. So Councillor Tower, I assume you are. I'm fine with it as well. Any last questions or comments? We can put it to a vote. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Okay, number 9, adjournment. Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Finney. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.